Our interview this morning is with Lloyd Lee Hargrove. Lloyd was born in Sayre, Oklahoma in March of 1937. He served in both the United States Army and the Navy in the 40s. His highest rank attained was Corporal. This interview is conducted at Burleson, Texas on Friday, June the 15th, 2012. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I'm not related to Lloyd in any way. Also in the room we have Gary Burton and Milton Gibson, who are our videographers. This interview is conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and also Operation Remember, City of Burleson, Texas. Lloyd, with that little intro, you tell us what you can remember, sir, about your time in the U.S. military.
Okay. Yeah, I decided to join the Navy, and I talked to my brother into joining with me. And there's my twin brother. And the only difference in our record was the first letter in the name. Mine starts with L and his with an F. And all the rest of it's the same. And we, in the Navy, we had a ball together. And it helped because if I stayed someplace overnight, didn't get back to the ship, he'd do my work. And it's just something that the sailors did, you know. We didn't think nothing about it. But when we went to, got in the Navy when we went to South Pacific, we went over and picked up prisoners of war and brought them home. That's the first get together with people like that, because we was the latter part of the service in the Navy. And we picked these prisoners of war up. Boy, I'll tell you, I heard some pretty good stories from most guys. And there's one guy that said that he hadn't lost no weight or no nothing. We asked him how he did it. He said it's real simple. You eat bugs. And I says, now since then I've heard that this is true. And but I never could get up enough nerve to try that. But when we went to Japan, then we was on the coast of Japan in a typhoon when the war was over, and we went up there to do little bombarding, and the war got over, and we went and picked these prisoners up. Then we went back up to Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And I went and walked all over both those towns, and I never had not one person said a bad word to me. Not one person got thrown rocks or nothing like they do over there now. But I walked all over them, over down to Hiroshima. I walked that place, went in the warehouse, got me a rifle and a bayonet, brand new, and nobody said anything to me. The women would all let me hold their babies, you know. Yeah, they was a friendly bunch of folks. We wouldn't realize that we'd been at war, but we had. So when we got discharged in, before we'd come home, we got discharged, and I decided I wanted to go back in the Army. I wanted to make it my career, and I went in the Army. And the Army was different. First off, they lied to me. Which is normal for them, I think. I said, now, I've been in the South Pacific. I don't want to go back. I want to go to EKO. I want to go over to Europe. And they said, okay. I said, guaranteed, okay. And when I got in there, the first place I went, Guam, South Pacific. And I said, why? And they said, well, you're a diesel mechanic and they need you. And I got to Guam, and the diesel mechanic that they needed so bad, they put in there as a clerk typist. And I never touched a typewriter in my life. And they said, that old sergeant said, you're a clerk typist now. And I said, no, I'm not. He said, yes, you are. I said, no, I'm not. And he said, we'll see. And I said, okay. So I just sat there. 3 days, I just sat there. I didn't touch nothing. And finally, that old sergeant come out and said, well, we're going to have to do something with you. And I said, okay, do it. but I'm not a clerk typist. And he said, well, we found that out real quick, didn't we? I said, I knew that before we got started. And they put me outside and put me in charge of the motor pool. I was in charge of the vehicles. And we had a 110-ton floating crane. We had 6 mobile cranes, and we had 3 track cranes. And I was in charge of all that. And I said, I don't know. He said, yes, you do. You're in charge of it, period. That's it. I said, this is Army. And so I went over, and I had a lot of good help. And I stayed in there, and we got after it. And I enjoyed that a lot because I was doing what I liked to do, and we was doing a lot of things. And then one day, after I'd been in there for all this time, there was a guy called me, said, he come up to me, said, I want you to come go with me. And I said, okay. I went with him, and he said to me, he says, how'd you like to go home? I said, great. Why? He said, well, I'll talk to you a minute. He talked to him a minute, and he says, there's stuff being picked up off the docks and sold. I said, yep. He said, and you're not involved. I said, nope. He said, we know that, but we got to get rid of you because you're going to get involved. And you'll find out who it is, and you'll ruin it. And we got a big investigation going, and says, we're going to send you home. I says, okay. And he said, yeah. And I said, how you going to do that? And he said, well, I'm CIA, and I'm out here investigating this. And I said, God damn, I'm up here in high cotton now. and 3 days later, I was on a ship coming to the United States. When I hit the shore out here at San Francisco, they took me off that boat, and I was discharged the next day. And I enjoyed it. But back up when I went into the Navy, Army, they sent me and 19 other guys overseas to an outfit and to join the Night Transit Medium Port, and it was all black. And they put us 20 white guys in there with all them black guys. There's about close to 150, 200 of them. And we just hadn't been in there an hour, and this guy come out there and told us, says, no, just because you guys are coming over here, you're not going to run this. This is our part of the world, and you just interfering in it. We're not going to have, you can't run it. And I said, well, hell, we don't want to run it. All we want to do is eat breakfast and sleep. And he said, well, we can take care of that part. But then we was there, and old Colonel, we did work for 3 days. We didn't do nothing. And he come out there, and he said, I have a piece of paper on my desk that says this will be a success. He said, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay. So we stayed. But we done put 3 days in a row for request for a transfer. And when we got up into the working part of it, I was about one of the oldest, being a corporal. My goodness, that rang a lot of bells. And so, but those guys did not want us in there. Now, we didn't want in there, but boy, it was, you work with them in the daytime and fight with them at night. It was just that simple. And I don't think the world ever found out about that part of the service. And we, I got acquainted with several of them. It's real good. And this one old boy that was Dr. Sargent, his name was Hitt, Sergeant Hitt. And I was pretty good friends with him. And I was over at his tent one day, and he says, who's that? And I said, who? And I turned around and looked, and there was a black guy coming up the street. I said, I don't know. He said, he's a new one. I said, okay. And that dude whipped a knife out that looked to me gigantic. And he's told me to get my so-and-so fanny back where I belong, that this was all. And old Hitt, I don't know where he got his knife, but he had one bigger than one little boy out there. He jumped over that railing and told him to get his butt out of there. That this was his house, and I was his company, and I was the visitor there, and I was welcome. And I thought, okay. Good. I won't bleed on your carpet. and I had several good friends, but now, for his pictures and stuff, my first wife, when I had them in a picture album, I had a bunch of good pictures of everything, and she went in there and tore them all out and threw them away. I said, why'd you do that for? She said, I don't want all them black dudes in my picture frame. And she'd tear them out. It's typical understanding of, the white people at that time. And she'd tear that out and put her page in there and throw mine away. And so I've lost most of my, that I had, pictures of it. And, but I enjoyed it, reasonably enjoyed it. If they hadn't, I'd stayed in the service if they hadn't screwed me around and put me, told me we'll do this and never done nothing. But since I had those strokes, I've lost a lot. I've lost all the dates and all the numbers and all of everything. There are 2 or 3 numbers that I can remember, but I don't know what they belong to. 1825, 1608, and I don't know what it's what it belongs to. and well, I've just lost all that since I had those strokes. But this place here has got me back on the road again. But I tell you what, my service was not what you'd think service ought to be like. But man, I got along pretty well. Now, there was a kid in my tent one night, started home, and I heard him yell, and I run out there, and he's laying on the ground, had blood all over his face and his chest, and somebody had hit him in the face with a big beer bottle full of sand. And it broke all his teeth on the top, broke his jaw, his cheeks, and here broke all this. And so we got people out and brought him out and took him to the hospital. And they had a big lawsuit over it. And I had to write an incident report for 2 different outfits on what happened. And there wasn't much happened. He just walked out the door and laid down, you might say. He got knocked down with that beer bottle full of sand. And there was, I enjoyed it. There's a place down there called the Boondockers Inn. And at a certain time at night, they closed her down, and the shore patrol come by and check it. Well, they had a beer box here, one there, 3, and they was lids, where just slide them up. And they would empty this, and they'd empty it and clean it, move it over. You had that one empty all the time. The shore patrol showed up, we'd run getting that empty box. Maybe I don't tell all this, but getting that empty box. And one night I forgot, and I jumped in that empty box, and it wasn't empty, it was full of cold water. And boy, it was water on my chest. And that shore patrol, how they cooperate, that shore patrol come by and tapped on us and said, okay, Lloyd, you can get out anytime you want to. So I said, it's time to get out. So I got out, but those black guys that run us out our tents, on payday, you left. You didn't stay for about 2-3 days, you'd be gone, because if you didn't, you're going to get your butt whooped. Or if you went up, our latrine was on top of the hill. If we went to that latrine by yourself, you're going to get your butt whooped. That was just that simple. And but they never did report none of it to nobody about nothing. It just happened. And I said, well, this may be the first time they're hearing about it, but it happened. And this, well, I'm gonna tell you this too. They'd run us out of our tent, and we moved into Quonset huts. And this old sergeant would come in there and run everybody out, and that included me. So I said, So I said, I'll fix that. So I went down there, and I went through the trash and the rubbish, there's a place over there, and I got the frame of a pistol, just a pistol. There no bullets, didn't have nothing, just you know. And I took it back over and I put it under my mattress. And I talked to old Bill. I said, Bill, come on and show you something. And I picked it up. I said, just enough so he could see it. I said, you know what that is? He said, yeah. I said, next time I get run out of my house, you know what I'm going to do? He looked at it. He said, you going to go coon hunting. and I laughed. And I never did get run out, and it never did it. That's all I had was a frame. But it worked, and you never knew what was going to happen from one day to the next. One day, see, on that 110-ton floating crane, they had to keep it pretty well busy. And when they started, they had to stay busy. And we was on the cruise, well, we'd have to go eat. Well, I was a corporal, so it was my job to get them up there and get them. So we went in to eat, and this old boy pulled his knife on us, and we just walked on by, and there he never said no, but he just pulled his knife, and that was it. That's happened a lot of times, you know. But that old mess sergeant in there, he says, told those guys as fast, said, load them up, and he did. He filled us up with food, and we couldn't eat it all. We went outside and sat down, and we got ready to go. He said, you can't go till you finish your food. I said, Sergeant, you know we can't eat that. He says, yes, you can. I said, okay. So I told him, just sit still, be still. We're supposed to be back around that 110-ton floating crane by then. So we just sat there. Well, here come that captain up there. I don't know what in the world had happened. And I told him, I said, that old mess sergeant won't let us go till we finish eating. He said, you can't eat all that. And I said, I know that. He knows that, but we can't go till we finish it. It'll be next week sometime, I guess. I don't know. And that old boy captain, he got after him. We never had that problem again. But just little things like that, just enough to make your world go around. But I enjoyed it at a point. Then it got boring. But the CIA agent that got me out, I don't know what the deal was on that, but there was a lot of stuff coming that Army port out there. Well, then we had they're selling Chinese scrap metal to China, which was, they had some scrap metal tanks that had about 3.5, 4 hours on them, and they sell them as scrap metal, 7 cents an hour, a pound, 7 cents a pound, and boy, we would get around. There's one place they had, I guess, 60, 70 Jeeps, vehicles, across just the fence, you know. So I said, let me have one of those. And they said, okay, go get it. I went and got it. And I said, can I? They said, be sure we get it back. That's it. I took it over, and we put it on the side, put a new engine, transmission, all in it, and we had a Jeep. And it was, of course, we had to do them a favor, too. We had to load stuff for them, those cranes. But I enjoyed it, but they arrested me around about so much I didn't decide I wanted any more of that, because everything they lied to me about. But it's called life in the fast lane. I guess that's about it.
See if we can help your memory a little bit here, Lloyd. Lloyd and Floyd both went in the Navy.
Yeah.
Y'all enlist?
Yeah.
Okay. Where'd you do that?
When?
Where? Were you in Oklahoma?
Oh, Elk City, Oklahoma.
Okay.
That's where we went in the Navy, right there.
And you both went through boot camp together?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to boot camp?
It was up at New Jersey, Moffett, Camp Moffett.
Okay.
That's where we went in the wintertime. But yeah.
How was that winter time for a?
Huh?
How was that winter time for an Oklahoma boy?
Boy, yeah. And it comes snow blizzard and all that. Yeah. It's just Oklahoma's like this. You don't know what you got tomorrow for weather. But The thing that really, we'd go to a new place and our name would be on there, Floyd and Lloyd. Everything would be the same except the 2 letters. And so they'd get down there to Floyd and they'd go through that and they'd look at the next one. They thought it'd be a misprint. And I just stood there. And they look at me, they said, "Sailor, what are you doing out here?" I said, "Waiting for you to call my name." They said, "It's not in here." And that happened 3 times. And well, but so we got where we go someplace, I'll tell whoever's running it to check those 2 right quick. But I'd stand there and wait for them to come back, and they thought it was just a misprint.
After boot camp, they send you both to the West Coast? After boot camp, did they send you both to the West Coast?
Yeah.
Okay. You
We
got
went
on a
together.
ship. You got on a ship on the West Coast.
How'd we what?
You got on a ship on the West Coast?
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of ship?
What kind of ship?
Mm-hmm.
The first ship we got was a cruiser, a light cruiser, the Biloxi.
Okay.
And then when I went into Japan and I got a APD. We got on an APD, amphibious personnel disposal. It's just a little. Oh well, then hold on, I can't think of the name of it. Anyhow, they put us on it, and that's where the one we went on was APD 50, and there was a group of people there from the Atomic Bomb Association in there to check Hiroshima from the dropping of the bomb.
Radiation.
Was doing a lot of checking, so we was to take them in there, and I said I was an engineer, so I got to go too. So I went with them, but when we got up there, as soon as we got there, we didn't have nothing to do all day. We just sat there and wait on them. And those guys just sat and wait, and I said, and I walked. They was afraid. I don't know why I wasn't afraid. I guess I wasn't smart enough to realize, But I never did have anybody to mistreat me. I never had any, but I had a lot of women hold their babies out to me. I hold their babies and talk to them, and everything was just real sociable.
Let's come back to the Biloxi, Lloyd. What was your job on the Biloxi?
On the Biloxi, fireman.
Okay.
It was a fireman on the boiler.
You had
room,
a steam plant.
Uh-huh.
You had a steam plant. You fired the boilers.
Yeah.
Went into the engine room. That's what drove the screws.
Yeah, we fired the boilers. But if we went into a battle situation where we was under attack or suspect, whatever, I was on at fire room number 1 at the main valve control, and that's where I sat right there. And if I got word, I was to shut that valve. And Floyd was at the back one. I was at the front, he was at the back one, doing the same thing.
Those boilers were oil fired?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about being down there in the boiler room. Was it hot?
Do what?
In the boiler room, was it hot?
Yeah, it's hot. But it wasn't that, you just get used to it.
How many guys in the boiler room with you? How many men?
7.
7?
That's it. Pretty good outfit, pretty good, They had 7 mostly because if something was to happen, they needed 7. And they were already in there.
Okay.
But when we went into that typhoon, some of them got seasick. We was short then, had about 4. But they really wasn't needed, I don't guess. I don't know. I never thought about it.
What sort of shifts did you work, Lloyd? Were you 8 hours on, 8 hours off?
No, we had, it was 4 hours on and 4 hours off. And then it would, finally you'd get over to where you get 8 hours off, but it's 4 hours, 4 and 4.
Okay. So you rode the Biloxi to Japan, and that's where you got on this APD?
Yeah.
Okay.
In Japan.
What was your job on the APD?
Fireman.
Had the same kind of plant?
Mm-hmm.
Boilers?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But see, I had the status of being a machinist, a mechanic. And that's why when these boats had to leave with these people on it, visitors on it, they had to have a mechanic on board, so they'd send me and I'd go along with it. And I didn't have nothing to do unless it broke down. But boy, I'd done a lot of walking.
The APD, is that what you brought the prisoners back to the States with? You said you brought prisoners back to the States?
Mm-hmm.
Was that on the APD?
What?
What ship?
It's APD.
Okay, that
Yeah.
you brought the prisoners back.
See, we didn't take, no, they brought the prisoners back was in the Biloxi.
Okay.
Man, that thing was full of them too. And they would bring them down to the bottom of the ship down there where they boarded the ship, and they put that old white powder inside their suit, what suit they had. That white powder in there. And then they'd come up and track it all over everything, but that's all right, you know. But then we got on board ship, we didn't have no room for them. We had a crew on there, and we didn't have no spare room, so they asked us if we would share our quarters with them. Yeah, if you want that old white powder in your bed.
That white powder was to kill the bugs or something?
Yep, killed everything they had. And they just come down there to the dock and pulled right up in there, and they just filled their clothes full of white powder, and it was ruffle their hair, and it killed all the bugs and everything, whatever they had, you know. And the only thing that I saw when we had at the bottom of the gangplank was a Japanese officer standing there. And we had one guy, I don't know who he was or why, but one guy come up there, when he got to that officer, he knocked him right flat on his butt. It was probably something happened between them and, you know. And the officer got up, and the guy got up, and they just went right on in. Come aboard ship never as if nothing happened. That's just one of the things that you can't tell. But my whole world turned around when I got over in that black outfit. Couldn't get out, couldn't get in.
Let me back up and finish your Navy time a little bit, Lloyd. Lloyd and Floyd were both on the Biloxi, both on this LPD.
Yeah.
You came back to the States then, and you both got out at the same time.
No.
No? Did he stay in?
He beat me 5 days.
Okay. Okay. But you both got out of the Navy?
Yeah.
Then
And I don't know where he went, but I went in the Army.
Okay. And he didn't go in the Army?
Uh-uh.
He deserted you?
He just did what... Said he didn't want any more military life. He'd had all he wanted, but...
Okay.
I thought it sounded like a pretty good deal if you devoted the rest of your life to it.
So you did your hitch in the Navy, and then you went over to the Army.
Yeah.
You spend 2 years in the Army? Did you spend 2 years in the Army?
No, I spent about 3.
About 3? Okay. Most of that time you were in Guam?
No, when I was in the Army,
Yes, sir.
I was in, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, that's where they sent me first right off the bat.
You didn't go back through basic or anything? They just... Okay. Sent you to Guam.
Sent to Guam.
Were you married at all when you were in the service, Lloyd? Were you married?
No, not
No?
then.
Okay.
I didn't get married till I got out.
Okay.
I didn't get married and I got out, and seemed like I was about 63. when I got married and I got out.
When you were on Guam, you lived in a barracks? You lived in a barracks
Yeah.
on Guam?
Yeah.
All white, or was it mixed?
I was scattered.
In the barracks, were there all white guys, or was it mixed?
No, it was. We didn't stay. I had 2 white guys for neighbors. The rest of them was blacks,
Okay.
and we just got finally got used to it. That's the way it was. But you didn't know.
Okay. It was a different army then than it is today, certainly.
Oh,
in
yeah.
that
Mm-hmm. But when I was over there and they said that I was under suspect for stealing all that stuff and selling it, but they cleared me, but they wanted to get me out of the way so they could. And I said, well, what happened? They said, that old boy told me, so just shut up and listen. That's what I did. I shut up and listened. He said, we're going to put you on a boat and send you home and get you discharged. I said, okay. And he said, I don't want you to talk to anybody or mention this to anybody about what we talked about, because it's too close to finding out, how things are going. But I didn't know if he had it, but he had it. He had the power.
After you got out, Lloyd, everything I hear, you're mechanical. What did you do after you got out of
What did I do?
the Army for good? Yeah.
I went to work in the oil field.
Okay.
And I worked in the oil field, and I built water towers. I done everything that was steel work, high steel work. And that's about it for us.
You're a welder and a fitter?
Well, I welded when I was in, but not much of a fitter.
Okay.
But in the oil field, I've done quite a bit of welding around the oil field. I worked in a machine shop. If they needed a welder, they'd send me. If it's just basic welding, and I do everything. And I tell you what set me off on this. When I was in school, my brother was a whiz. He was a smart aleck, and he knew he got everything go right. And I got a lot of good report cards. I didn't get no education because they would pass me to stay with him because we were twins. And I knew it was easy. I didn't know what was going on. I was that dumb. And the teacher one day, the new teacher come in, and I was diagramming sentences. I'll never forget what I was doing. Diagramming sentences, and stupid, but I was doing it. And she come up behind me and stood there a minute, and then she, remember them old square pencils? Those had them square erasers on them? She had that old big eraser, went tap right on top of my head. And she looked down, I looked at her, and she said, Lord, I said, what? She said, you're too stupid to be in school. And I said, that takes care of that. I'll just quit. So I quit. And I went out, and I said, but the war had just started. And all those guys was gone, and a lot of jobs open. And so I went around, and I told this old guy that I went to work first construction. I said, I want to work for the meanest man you got. He said, why the meanest? I said, the meanest will teach you more in a hurry than the others will. I said, that's the one you want. And so he said, that'll be Mr. Harris. And he gave me Mr. Harris. Boy, I worked with Mr. Harris about 2 weeks, and Mr. Harris called me in there, and he said, I want to ask you a question. I said, okay. He said, why did you want me? And I told him, He said, now I want to tell you something. And we talked a little bit, and he said, if you've got my tool At the end of the day, where are you going to put it where I can find it? And I said, oh, there and over here and over, you know. He said, no, there's only one place you can put it where I can find it. And I said, where? He said, on the ground. Put every tool that you use, put it on the ground. I won't look nowhere but on the ground. That's the one ground. And it makes sense when you think about it, you know. And he told me, I told him about being stupid in school, and I couldn't go to college and all this and all that. And he said, let me tell you something. Said, if you'll use common sense, you'll get along all right, but you got to use common sense about everything. And that's what I did. And I never had a job yet except one that I didn't wind up as a supervisor. And it's strictly for using common sense. And when I worked at DFW Airport for 16 years, and there was 4 things that needed to be fixed. And I never could get them to fix it because their idea is don't fix it because that's going to put work into people who keep a personnel, you know. A lot of people think that way. And I said, well, hell. So I had 1 month left. I fixed all 4 of them with no paperwork. I just fixed them. And I made, one of them they was working 4.5 hours, and I done it in 32 minutes. And that old, they'd write me down for messing with the paperwork. I said, nah, I ain't messing with the paperwork. And finally I showed them, so then it was my turn to go redo every place there, do them over, do them again. So I did. But that's not military, but it's a lot like it.
Lloyd, we appreciate you taking the time to come see us this morning, do the interview. We appreciate your time in the service, sir. Good to meet you.
Well, thank you, but I don't think I'm too sharp on anything.
No, you got some good stories. Good stories. Thank you, sir.